CM Punk, Phil Brooks, how are you? It's such a pleasure to be able to speak to you today.
I'm good. Pleasure's all mine. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. And of all the projects I could have spoken to you about, I'm really glad it's Night Patrol because, it's a great action movie with a very cool take on vampires on the one hand, but then on the other, it's got a lot to say about police corruption and racism. So, as an actor, how exciting is it for you to play a villain like this, but to also tackle some pretty heavy themes at the same time?
It's really exciting. I'm a big horror movie fan, and a lot of it is because of the subject matter, but horror movies to me have also been the genre that filmmakers use to speak on social issues. Way back when George Romero made Night of the Living Dead, that is a social commentary. This movie's no different, and it's fun to be able to do an action horror movie because you like them. It's more meaningful when you're actually saying something with the movie. So, uh, yeah, getting to play a bad guy in this kind of movie was tremendous. Meant a lot to me. Like I took it very seriously, because we talk about there's a lot of underlying issues in this, and I think we did a masterful job of kind of asking the question like, who's the real monster? Who's the real gang?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely agree after watching the film. And, I've always admired how you've used your platform, to speak out against racism and a lot of great support causes that you support. So to be an actor in a project like this, what's the biggest challenge in terms of getting into a mindset of a character who, I guess, stands against everything that you do as a person?
I wish I could say it was hard, but it's
Hmm.
not. It's actually quite easy. I think everybody has a less than desirable experience with a cop, whether it's being pulled over or, I don't know, harassed on the street. Like I don't know, but I know I've had multiple instances where it's just like, man, I thought you were supposed to protect and serve. Like, why are you like this? And it was fun to be able to get to act that out. You get to be a little bit naughty, but it's all for, it's all for art, so to speak. Um, so yeah, it was easy to be able to be that rotten, nefarious, diabolical bad guy.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, like myself, you're a big Marvel Comics fan, and Deputy as a character, I could see squaring off with someone like Blade. But for you in the later stages of this film to get to play a real larger than life kind of vampire villain, what did that side of things mean to you? It must have been a lot of fun, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's one of those where you're looking around like they're I would do this for free, but they're paying me. Uh, so it's a win for me. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun, like there's something about villains that I think are, villains are more oftentimes, for lack of a better word, sexier than the good guys, Like the villains get to do fun stuff. The villains got the better weapons, the better outfits, Cobra's cooler than G.I. Joe. Um, but this movie really kind of turns that on its side and explores it. Like, who really are the villains here?
Yeah, and I know without getting too much into spoilers, in the final act, there is a really dark scene with you and some prisoners in a cage that, culminates with a very bloody moment. So what do you remember about that night on set and the process of shooting a scene like that one?
I remember asking how far we can push it because it is a very dark scene. And I do say a lot of questionable things that if you heard a real person in real life say, you'd be like, huh? Like, and, given where we are in the political climate of 2026 right now in the United States of America, like, I think this movie is gonna make people think.
Yeah, and what better way to reach an audience than with a movie that can make people think?
Yeah.
And I know obviously in your other profession you've worked with real blood, but to work with fake blood, I speak to a lot of actors who say it's a nightmare, it's sticky, that they can't stand it. But what was it like for you?
There's a scene in the movie, and again, maybe you want to throw a spoiler tag on here. But when I get chewed on by Justin Long, I straight got waterboarded. We had a tube that was running up through my chest plate, and I was laying on my back. So when they hit that, I mean, it was straight in my mouth, straight up my nose, and I had to keep my eyes open because that's the scene. And I think any normal person would have just rolled over and like gagged. And no, I was like, we're shooting it. We got one chance at this. We got to get it. And then I spent 15 minutes on my hands and knees, throwing up after that. It was exciting. Fake blood, though, very sticky. Sounds cool. I used to be the kid who would make fake blood in a bucket, you know, uh, in my house with the KO syrup and the red food coloring. But when you're covered in it and you're sitting in it for 16 hours, not fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine it. And as CM Punk, you're telling obviously these amazing long-term stories, 52 weeks of the year. But as Phil Brooks in this film, does that help you when it comes to shaping a character like the one you play in Night Patrol? And maybe then does that feed back into your other profession as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many parallels with both jobs. But there's tiny little minutia that are different here and there. Obviously, TV and movies, we can do multiple takes. The wrestling shows we do on a weekly basis are live, but that's a lot like theater. So you can take from both and apply to both. For wrestling, I need to be bigger. I need to wrestle bigger so people in the cheap seats can see me. And for TV and movie, like this is it. So I almost need to be more subtle or it comes off like I'm overacting and being comedic. So I can apply that to wrestling and vice versa when the time's right. I can act bigger and sillier if need be on a movie set.
Yeah, and talking of one of those big moments, there's a great scene with Deputy where he's like this unstoppable force just shrugging off gunfire. Do
Yes.
those action heavy days on set, are they a lot of fun for you, or is it actually pretty grueling? Obviously we're watching it as an audience. It looks like you're just shrugging it off, but is that a tough day on set?
They're both, yeah. You just know that the final product is going to look cool. You know, when the soundtrack is added and the VFX are added, it's going to look that much cooler. But just like what a fun night that was. Like Freddie Gibbs and YG pointing guns at me, and me just walking them down. Um, very, very interesting moment. And yeah, a lot of fun because it is very much an action movie underneath all the horror overtones.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for your time. CM Punk has long been my favorite wrestler, and I thought you were fantastic in this film. So it's been such a pleasure to speak to you about it as a fan of yours. So thank you so much.
Appreciate the support, Josh. Thank you very much.